Hey guys, today's video I wanted to talk a little bit about some of my bad school habits that have worked out for me, and I'll try to defend them, but overall I recognize that these are probably not good habits to have in terms of how to be a decent student, so I'll talk about them. First big one is I have never in my life really taken notes for a class. Um, every once in a while I'll write out the example that's going on the board, or I'll make a note of something in general for like a slideshow if like the professor says like, oh, you don't need to worry about this, those kind of things. But as far as like copying down what the professor is doing step by step, or writing down all the words that are coming out of his mouth, those kind of things, I don't do notes. I much rather, instead of like writing down every little line and problem and number that he puts on the board, I much rather just focus on the lecture and digest and understand everything he's talking about, especially in college classes, for example, because usually the pace is very, very fast, and that time where you're looking away from the board to look down and write, you could very easily get lost in whatever steps the professor's doing, especially if he's a bit all over the place, erasing in the middle of his work to adjust things. Also, I like to stay active within the class to keep me, moving along with the lecture speed. So I'm usually the person that's in class actively punching in the numbers in my calculator as the professor's doing math, and answering questions as they pop out. For example, one of my classes was a steel design class where the professor would be working out a problem on the board, would come up with numbers off the top of his head, and he'd say, all right, you do this, you put these numbers in the equation, what does that come out to? I'd punch in the numbers real quick and give those answers. Or another example from the same class is the whole class was based on what we call the Steel Bible. It's a big, thick, 500-page book with all the different codes and rules and equations for designing steel structures. And he would say, oh, this is a number from a table in this book. What is it? And that'd be the one that usually would answer those kind of things, just to keep the pace of the class going. Helps me practice with using the book and the calculator and getting used to the equations just practice-wise. So that's how I take notes, quote unquote, in class, even though I don't actually physically write down notes during a lecture. Another big one is I study pretty late usually. Most of the time for exams and tests and things like that, I study the night before. Maybe 2 nights before if I'm really, really worried about the test, but overall it's usually the night before, a little bit touching on some random things that are memorized day of, but I try not to study the day of the exam because I feel like you don't actually digest information in that time. That's only good for just purely trying to memorize random equations, random information that you could jot down on your paper as soon as the test is handed out, called a brain dump. Just memorize as much as you can, and as soon as the paper's out, write down all the information you can somewhere on the paper so that you can pull back to it later. The best study source, of course, is past exams. If you're new to school in general, like specifically college, the past exams of a class are very, very helpful. Most of the time, the professor changes minimal things. They'll change some numbers around. They'll change a little bit of the wording, but overall, the concept of the question is the same, and you'll be able to practice a bit of what kind of questions you're expected to be able to answer. Another big thing for one of my study habits is I don't like to read things, which is especially hard for, say, an English class where you're supposed to read articles every week and write a discussion post, like a 300-word mini paragraph essay thing about what you learned in those articles, what they meant to you, all those kind of things. And I don't read the articles. I usually will read the beginning of the article, the end of the article, the intro, conclusion kind of thing. I'll pick around some words and some like titles of sections of the article, the beginning and ends of some paragraphs if they look important, and just kind of skim everything in the middle. But the primary, I just read like the beginning and end a little bit and fill in the blanks from there. If it's something where I'm trying to quote information from it, which is usually the case for a writing assignment in school, I will usually just try and come up with an idea of what I think the article is about and stuff, write my thoughts leaning towards that, and then work backwards to try and find an example that supports it's not really working backwards. That's how you're supposed to write articles or write about a piece, is you have an idea and then you look back in the piece to find a supporting example for what you're trying to claim. So that's what I do. Now that I'm thinking about it, it's really not that abnormal. But yeah, I never have actually sat down and read one of these 10-page to 50-page articles all the way through. It's usually just me picking and choosing some random spots to read about, specifically beginning and end, because you get all the information you need there. So these are what I would have called like my negative school habits, and I think I did a decent job of kind of defending why and in what circumstances they work for me. But some of the more positive school habits I have that I think have really helped me overall is studying with friends is a big one. For all those late night exams, studying the night before, doing it with a group of friends really helps expedite things, bounce questions off each other, either me asking questions and people there being able to answer, or if someone asks me a question, it helps me practice and test my knowledge of the subject we're talking about. I also am big on practice problems rather than like trying to actually memorize like step-by-step formulas or trying to memorize like the notes from a lecture or something like that. I just practice with as many problems as I can to get used to the work and stuff, and I can usually figure things out on the fly with a given problem, especially if I have practice manipulating the problem and answering different types of questions that are related to the subject we're doing. And then one of my big life hack kind of tips is I never do work in my bedroom. I leave my dorm room, specifically, not really my bedroom, my dorm room, to be a safe space from all work. I will always, as soon as I leave, I've mentioned this before in past videos, as soon as I leave my dorm in the morning, I do not go back to my dorm until I'm ready to go to bed. Even if that's on a weekend and I don't feel like doing anything that day, if I want to watch a movie or something, I'll go to a lounge, a study space, things like that, and I'll watch it there. But I want my room to be a place that's purely for sleep and completely like shutting down, digesting from my day. And that especially includes work. I never do work in my room. I always find a computer lab, a study room, my civil engineering lounge to do that kind of work in. So with that, I'm going to wrap up the video here, trying to keep these a little shorter than I have been. This weekend, I will be in Atlantic City the entire weekend, from Friday to Sunday. Tomorrow, I'll probably get the video out in the morning before I leave. Saturday, we'll have to see what happens, because I know I'll be busy for majority of the day. Hopefully, I'll probably squeeze out the video in the morning, but it might be one of those quick 10-second, hey guys, here's my video, and I post it. And then Sunday, I should be able to post a video at night after I get back from my trip. But anyway, as always, thank you all for watching, and I'll see you tomorrow.